Oh, over. So, sorry about that, everyone. I pressed the wrong button. I meant to switch over to my break slide, and instead I ended my live stream, which was a silly thing to do, but you know, it's Friday and maybe my brain is transitioning into the weekend a little bit early. Sometimes those things happen. Right, so before we went to break, we were talking about the gods and how they're, you know, kind of capricious, jealous, flawed beings, right? Which is kind of interesting, especially those of us from a monotheistic or a, you know, sort of a Judeo-Christian background where God is kind of a perfect, an absolutely perfect being, right? An all-loving, all-powerful being. And here we have gods that are certainly not all-powerful. They're powerful over their little realm, the thing they have power over, but they're also, you know, kind of, you know, very flawed, very human kind of characters, which is interesting to think about. And it led Socrates to think about this Euthyro dilemma, right? If the gods are not perfect, then everything they say is not going to be good, is it? And so if everything the gods say is not good, how do we know what is, right? How do we logically assess good and bad, right and wrong, if we're not looking for morality, you know, in the heavens kind of thing? And of course, that's going to inform all Greek philosophical thought, not looking for answers up there, but saying, how do we figure out the world down here? So, let me see. So, oh yeah, so we watched the video there. We talked about that. Yes. What's our time like here? Athens and Sparta. Okay. Probably won't have time to get to the video today, so we'll deal with that on Monday. But there are a few things to talk about here. Number one, we're going to hear about these two city-states quite a bit because they're, in the sort of classical Greek period, they're the most kind of influential city-states. There's other ones like Corinth and Argos and all sorts of other ones throughout the Greek world, but these are the big ones, yeah. Yeah.
And the ones that got the Persian Empire, the Persian Empire, Asians are the ones that created Spartans, right?
Who?
There was a 300 Spartans.
Oh. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who the betrayer was, but we'll get to that.
Like the Spartans that died, so they got betrayed. Who exactly betrayed them? Are they the Asians?
I don't know. I don't know who betrayed them, to be honest. I don't know. Somebody did, but I'm not sure who it was. Right. So there's these two. These are the big sort of important city-states for this classical period: Athens and Sparta. And again, they really couldn't be more different. These two city-states. As we'll see, eventually Athens will become a naval power and kind of build a little empire in the Aegean and the Mediterranean. The Spartans will kind of create a little, not an empire of their own, but they'll have control over part of Greece as well, a fearsome sort of land-based military power. And both of these city-states have kind of found their way into the sort of cultural myth of the West, right? The sort of democracy and the intellectualism of the Athenians versus the sort of military prowess of the Spartans. And so they're kind of an interesting dichotomy, the two city-states. This is where they are. I'll just back up here. This is where they are. So you can see here, this is the Greek world that we're talking about. And in this sort of lower blue part here, this is the Peloponnese. And so this big section is connected to the rest of Greece just by a little bridge of land called the Isthmus, which I can barely pronounce. So you can see the Isthmus right there, and Corinth kind of has control of that little land bridge. But over the land bridge, we've got Athens, and a bunch of other important city-states too, but Athens will come to dominate that area. And then you can see Sparta down there in Laconia, and Sparta will come to dominate that part of Greece a little bit later as well. Oh, right, I was going to get you to read. Interesting. Okay, so before I get you to read, I just want to talk very quickly about the second paper assignment, okay? So I've posted it in Microsoft Teams, which you may have seen and you may not have. But if you haven't seen it, I'm going to show it to you right now. Here we go. So, nope, not Keynote, Acrobat Reader. All right. So this is what I'll be asking you to do for the second micropaper, and it's a little bit different from the first, but not super different. Hang on. There we go. There we go. So what I'll be asking you to do this time is write, again, a short paper, maybe about 800 words, same length, that has an introduction and some body paragraphs and a conclusion. And this is what I want you to answer a question this time. So last time you were supposed to sort of summarize and respond. This time you'll be answering a question. And so basically I want you to answer the question and make your own argument. Your answer is an argument that says that, or that answers the question, what are the most important lessons that modern society can learn from these two ancient Greek city-states? So as I mentioned, Athens and Sparta are pretty different places, even though they're not really that far apart, and technically they are part of the same Greek culture, but they're pretty interesting places and they do very interesting things. And so I would like you to do some research on these two city-states and come up with 3 things that we in the modern world can learn from the Athenians and the Spartans. Okay, so again, you'll be building an argument, and so you'll have a pretty clear, hopefully, you'll have a pretty clear thesis statement that says, you know, Athens and Sparta are quite different. However, the modern world should really take notice of these 3 things. And it could have to do with Athenian or Spartan culture. It could have to do with their history, about what happens to them as city-states, any of those things. But I want you to build an argument. Yeah, that's what I want you to do. And you'll, of course, you'll probably have to use a couple of sources for this paper, maybe 2 or 3. Keep in mind, if you use a source, you don't have to use everything in a source, right? You can just take the bits that you need and cite them properly, and then you're good. You don't have to summarize everything a source says. I also have a little marking guide for you in the assignment on Microsoft Teams, so you can look at that. So that's what it is, and I'll make it due for 2 weeks from now, March 19th, which is a bit of a squeeze. So I'm going to have to, once these get turned in, I'm going to have to mark them really fast, because you will need to get them back in order to write the final paper. So it's going to be a little bit tight, but that's something I have to commit to. Yes. I will assign it to you. I'll probably assign it to you basically right after you hand this one in, just so you have the most time, and then I will work to get the comments to you back absolutely as soon as possible, because you will need them to write the final. So I'm still working on what the final paper topic will be. So I don't want to comment on it yet, because I'm not ready to commit to it.
And what about
The other 2 quizzes are upcoming, and I'm thinking about, this is week 8, so 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We've still got 5 weeks. Do you want to try and do the next quiz at the end of next week? Next Friday? Because the Friday after that, the paper will be due. So we don't want to wait another week. And of course, Monday's a little bit too soon. What's that? 2 more. No, we have 2 more total. So we have 1 more if we do next Friday, and then Next Friday is 12. Yeah, so I think, let me just, look at my calendar here. So if next Friday is the 12th, the paper's due on the 19th. Yeah, and then maybe we could do the last quiz on April 1st or something. Maybe. Is it going to be? Well, that's April Fool's Day, but the quiz won't be. But maybe that's what we'll do. Okay, so let's try. Let's do the quiz next week, next Friday on the 12th. Yeah, quiz on the 12th. The paper will be due on the 19th. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is, whoops, oh boy. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of papers is in kind of marking your last paper. So obviously you all got audio comments from me, kind of, listing what I thought you did well and maybe what you can improve on for next time. But I wanted to provide some comments to the group. So first of all, make sure you pay attention to your sources. A lot of people chose papers that didn't really have arguments in them, and in that they kind of struggled to comment on an argument because they didn't actually have one to comment on. Don't forget to try to assess your source for credibility. So we need it to be a legitimate, believable source, right? We don't want to read some guy's website, that he's a nobody and has no training and we don't know who he is, right? We want good, credible information, right? A bunch of people, not a bunch of people, but a number of people, I'm not sure what happened here because what I asked for in the assignment was something to do with culture and story. And some people had some very different articles that didn't really deal with story in any way. And I was a little bit confused by that, but this time I gave you the benefit of the doubt. So I said, okay, this isn't quite what I was asking for in the assignment, but maybe I was unclear. Maybe the way I stated the assignment was not clear, and so maybe that's my fault. So I marked the paper as best I could based on what you provided with me. However, I do expect you to provide me with what I ask for, because I don't just ask questions randomly. I'm trying to ask things so that you can show me what you know and show me what you can do. And if you kind of drift off course, it gets hard for me to kind of determine that. So please give me what I ask you for. I will not be taking mercy on you next time if you give me something that is off topic, although I think the topic here is reasonably clear. Don't forget that you always should structure your papers in terms of an argument. And so your paper should always, you remember with the coffee thing? The coffee thing, I said, yeah, coffee is, you should all drink coffee. It's inexpensive, tastes great, and it helps you get better grades. I could write an entire paper on that. And you should be able to do that with your paper too. You should be able to say, this is what this paper is about. The paper answers this question, and it says these three things, these three major things. You should be able to do that in a sentence or so. If you can't do that, then you don't really know what your paper is about. And if you don't know what it's about, the reader won't know either. And again, I am contractually obligated to read your writing, but in real life, people won't keep reading, right? People will be like, I don't know what I'm reading here. I can't do it, right? I will continue to read it, but other people won't. So make sure that you structure your paper as an argument, right? And maybe deal with one premise or one reason in each paragraph, and that helps people to understand what's going on, right? In the last paper, in your responses, that's kind of, in your responses where I look for the sort of complexity and depth of your thinking, right? That's where I look to see, does this student get it? Are they paying attention in class? Do they understand what's going on? And can they talk about these things in reasonable depth and complexity, right? So, in looking at the topic we're looking at here with Athens and Sparta, there's probably some pretty easy answers, right? Like there's probably you could probably say, well, Athens was a democracy, and so the lesson we should learn is that we should all be democratic. Okay, that's that's pretty superficial, and it's not a very complex thought, right? So the more you can show me your thinking and how you're understanding this information, the better that will go for you, right? I'm looking to see if you really understand this stuff and if you can think creatively and critically and with some depth. And so again, you could probably offer some very simple answers to this question, but that won't really work, right? I want a little bit of meat. I want a little bit of, tell me something interesting, right? And last thing, some of you didn't format your references in MLA formatting. Some of you made an attempt, which is good. Make another attempt. You will get it. It's no big deal. But some people didn't attempt it, and so you will need to for next time. Yes.
For the final paper, can you submit the quizzes with one question, or
Can you what?
the final test? It's gonna be like a long class, like the quizzes with one question.
No, it's gonna be a paper, but a longer paper. It's gonna be like this, but a little bit bigger. With a question that's a little more open-ended, so you can kind of go maybe where you want to go with it. But
So it's gonna be like about one topic.
I don't know what it's going to be about yet because I'm still figuring it out.
One more last question.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do it before?
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna assign it to you, and then you're off for 2 or 3 weeks. You'll have 2 or 3 weeks to write it, so you will know.
So when you assign it, like, will we have general lectures going on, or will it be just open?
No, we'll still continue to do class. I may be able to give you a class or two to work on it. I often have in the past, and so if you convince me that you will work on it during that time, I can feel comfortable giving those classes to you to work. So I'm not opposed to that.
Could you project one of the sample of the format of the reference, or should we write it?
Can we go over what it looks like in class? Yes. I'll prepare something for next week, and we'll do 5 minutes on MLA formatting. Okay. Cool. Okay. So let me just see. Okay. I think that's all I have for you because I want to get into a documentary thing, but obviously we won't have time. So that is it for today. Have a lovely weekend if you are able to, and I will see you on Monday. What's